all homeschooled kids are well behaved, right? All right, let's talk a little bit today about homeschool stereotypes. But rather than talking about the stereotypes of what the outside world sees in homeschoolers, I want to talk about a stereotype that homeschoolers often expect of other homeschoolers. You know, if you would ask somebody who did not have any experience with the homeschooling community how they thought homeschooled kids would behave, most of them would probably tell you that they think that the kids are probably shy and socially awkward, because that is typical of what people who don't know what homeschooling is about think of homeschooled children. On the other hand, though, I've noticed that there are a lot of homeschoolers, especially newer homeschoolers, who have this idea that all homeschooled kids are well behaved, except theirs. I went through the same thing when I first started out homeschooling, because when I first started homeschooling, the very first real glimpse into a homeschooling family that I had was the Duggars. And if you watched them on TV and saw how their kids behaved, yeah, they seemed pretty perfect, didn't they? So when I started homeschooling my kids, and after a while they did not turn out to be these little perfect children, I started to wonder if I was possibly doing something wrong. And it didn't help with the fact that when I did start meeting other homeschooling families, mainly at church, I also noticed that their kids were also very well behaved and very obedient. But what I never really thought about was that I was looking at my kids with how they behave at home. And I never stopped to think about what my kids look like to others when we are out and about. Because you know what? When my kids are out and about in church or at the store, I often get compliments about how well behaved my kids are, but they are completely different at home. Yes, they bicker, they argue, sometimes they talk back, sometimes they are sullen. They're human, they are not perfect. And whether a child is in public school, private school, or homeschooled, there is no child who is perfectly well behaved all the time. Now, with that being said, I will say that I do believe that homeschooling does play a part in helping children to be more obedient and to have better, believe it or not, social skills when it comes to being out in the community, simply because the homeschooling parents are there more often with their children to train them behavior-wise. And I know a lot of people don't like, the word training when it comes to children, but the Bible tells us, train up your child in the way they should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. So, yes, we are supposed to train our children. And the more that a parent is with a child, hopefully, the more they are bringing them up to understand how it is that they are to behave and what is expected of them. Now, does this mean that I think that all kids who go to public school or private school, or any kids who are away from their parents more than homeschooled kids are, does this mean that I think that they're not well behaved at all? Absolutely not. There are a lot of public school families in my church, and they also seem on the outside completely perfect and quiet. And when I see them with their parents, you can see that their parents put a lot of time into training their children. They put a lot of effort into it. And so I think that very often what it comes down to more than actually homeschooling is the time that a parent is willing to put into a relationship with their child. Unfortunately, there are a lot of parents whose kids go to school who don't put that extra effort in. And, a lot of times that's because they also were raised that way, that they didn't have a lot of time put into their relationship with their parents, or to teach them how it is that they are to behave in the world. But, I just wanted to encourage you in that today, that just because you see other kids, especially homeschoolers, that seem on the outside like they are perfect and that you must be doing something wrong with your kids, it's not even true. It's not the case. I will even give you an example. My son has a friend. Now, my son is 19 now, but when he was in high school, he would often go over to his friend's house. And I always looked at his friend as just having this perfect family. They were just always so well behaved at church and just very quiet. And I never saw them stepping out of line at all. And so a lot of times when my son would go over to his house, I would tell him, now, can you just make sure that you listen while you're there, please, please? And the one day he came home and he said, Mom, you're always so worried about how I behave when I'm over there, but I wanted to let you know something. He acts just like I do. And that is really something that I think a lot of us homeschooling parents don't think about. We are putting other families up on a pedestal, and we are bringing ourselves down so often because we are expecting so much of ourselves that we're not looking at things realistically. So the next time that you feel like you are not doing an adequate job of parenting your children, of training your children, and that your kids are probably the only homeschoolers who give their parents a hard time every once in a while, I just want to let you know you're not alone. And the only families who probably are alone are those who do have perfect kids, because so far I haven't met any. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disabled my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.